Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Payton, pastor of Come As You Are Community Church, and your host tonight for a Fit Conversation, fearless, intentional, and transformational. And we have an exciting guest. Not only is he an exciting guest, but he's blood. So I want to introduce you to my nephew, Stephen Towns. What's going on, nephew?
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, I'm glad you are here. I wanted you to come in and us chop it up because you have this plethora of experience that we want to tap into and see how it plays out in leadership. So why don't you take a few moments and just introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay. My name's Steve Towns. I am the nephew of Anthony Payton and First Lady Sandra Payton. I grew up in California, actually, but I was born in Toledo. And my mother was in the service, and we moved around a lot. Most of my adolescent years were in Norway and Germany. Came back to the United States in '87, and that's when you and Aunt Sandy became Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv to me.
Quite literally, yeah, quite literally.
Yeah. And I attended Elmhurst High School and joined the military my junior year in '92. I completed my advanced training and graduated high school in '93 and started a 26-year career of in the Army, where I served in the infantry, the Cavs, bunch of hats, different jobs, bunch of activations, a couple of deployments to Iraq, and that's pretty much.
Like I said, a plethora of experience. And in between all of that, quite a wrestling career.
It wasn't,
Yeah,
anything
he's pretty
marquee.
modest. Yeah, be pretty
I
modest.
did okay.
You did okay.
I did
You
okay.
did okay. But now, after all these years of not only living in different countries, but serving this country in different capacity in other countries, you are back in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you are working for?
I work for the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana. We moved back in 2015, and I started with the chamber in 2018.
Wow. I mean, without just diving into, what you do there at the chamber, when you sit back and you look back or you look across or down the memory lane of your life, your experiences, I mean, because I remember when you came from Germany here and high school and all that good stuff. And then I marvel at your career path, the things that you've accomplished. I know you're modest, but you've done some incredible things in a short period of time as a young whippersnapper, as they say.
Yeah, I did everything young, is what my dad said. Everything is young.
Everything young?
Everything young.
I mean, out of all those accomplishments that you've had in those different deployments and combat deployments, et cetera, and to come back and now work for the chamber, what do you think your experience on the field helped you do or process things for the chamber?
That's a good question. I think that my tenacity coming from the military into the civilian sector is not something I guess is typical or common. My boss, Bill, he's always, patting me on the back saying, hey, you're above and beyond all expectations. And I'm like, I'm just trying to just get through the day, man. So I try to do things with a degree of professionalism as a civilian that I used to do as a soldier. So,
Wow.
And it's not something I focus on. It's just something I don't know how to turn off, I guess, best way to put it.
I think that once that system and those ethics that comes along with that are in you, it's in you.
It is.
You know, we joke as a family about the Great Santini. You know that movie with Robert Duvall coming
With
from
the whistle and the voice.
whistle blowing, waking everybody up.
It's not that bad at my house. It's really not.
Okay, we'll take your word for that. But those qualities that you learned and gained, you're right. You just can't turn that off.
No, they instill the Army values in you, which is leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Once you breathe it and eat it and live it every day for as long as I did, it's kind of hard just not to do it.
I remember, and we already talked about we're going to chase some rabbits tonight, but I remember in my former life, you know, before I got saved and accepted Christ, there was this gentleman. He was a military. He's actually a Marine. Yeah, I don't know why so many Marines came in my life. I had no intentions of going to the military. But anyway, that's another thing. But I was in jail. I was in Mississippi, and I was looking at a whole lot of time because of something that had previously happened, and that's another story. But Sergeant McAbee came in, and he took over the jail there, and every inmate every inmate he was just, sir, Mr. Payton. You're guilty of whatever, but he never addressed you as a guilty individual. It was always, sir, or sir, can you get over there and can you do this? And Mr. Payton, we're gonna have to talk about this decisions you made, that kind of. And the thing that I even say that, sir, I say it now, because that influence that he had is still carries on with me, that love of respect, no matter what, you know. And I think maybe coupled with growing up down south and you said those kind of things. But I watched him, even as a civilian, not able to turn that sense of respect, loyalty off.
No. There's a saying in the quiet professionals, you know, you can power down, but you can't power off.
Wow. You can power down, but
Yeah.
you can't power off.
No. So you can kind of not diminish yourself. You can give respect to people regardless of their status or their stature, and you can still, you know, be a person of not integrity. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but you can still command respect and be respectful at the same time. It's not binary. So.
So you've been there, and a lot of your experience on the field and different capacity that you've served this country and the different things that you've done has helped you transition to this civilian life and position that you now have. What do you see based on that position and your scope of things? Let's start with this question. What has historically been, from your perspective, the relationship between Southeast and the Chamber?
Well, again, being sort of new to the realm and scope of economic development and whatnot, it's kind of hard to answer that question based upon some misnomer that comes with the title of the company I work for. So the regional chamber is not your typical chamber of commerce.
Okay.
We are the advocacy and the lobbying arm of 16 local chambers, 20 economic development organizations, Northeast Indiana Works, and we also work with the elected officials of our respective surrounding counties, including Allen County. So the regional chamber is not the Chamber of Commerce. That's actually Greater Fort Wayne, John Urban's group on the 8th floor. We're on the 9th floor. But if there is any issue that comes up through the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Fort Wayne, that requires us to do some advocacy or lobbying work in downstate, that's what we're charged to do.
Okay.
But I can say emphatically that there are 243 members that are members of Greater Fort Wayne and their issues are addressed by Greater Fort Wayne and brought to us whenever necessary.
You see, now I learned something because I think that's something that has to be clearly articulated, and and people have to separate that, because there is a paradigm there. There is this misnomer that they're one and the same.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so I asked that question with that context, with that basic understanding, even though it was false. You know, and I think that, you know, that's good. I appreciate you clarifying that. So based upon, you know, the lobbying, for lack of better terms, and you use the word, that is done on behalf of the community, southeast side of Fort Wayne, and the chamber, where do you think we are now in this season?
We are in the season of change and growth. There is a lot of development that is prepped, I think, for the southeast side of town and Fort Wayne overall. The economic development teams, the LEDOs, there are so many projects that are going on, not necessarily behind the scenes, but at different stages that are just waiting for certain benchmarks to be hit in order for the next phase of development and growth to occur.
Well, I mean, I respect that. I appreciate it, because I think people need to understand that there are things on the board that are behind the scene, and there are certain things that have to happen in order before they are pushed in front of the scene.
Right.
You know, but I tell you, Stevie, you know, I mean, I've been here probably near 40 years in Fort Wayne, and there was a period of time where this conversation would not need to happen when it pertains to the southeast side of Fort Wayne, because everything was on this side of Fort Wayne. You know, the biggest mall was on here and all that kind of stuff, you know. Middle class families, both black and white, were on this side of town. And this area, this corridor, was the lifeblood economically. Here, rooftops and retail and religion, they were here. You know. But over the years, that subsided for various reasons. American in general began to ship jobs overseas and did the manufacturing overseas, et cetera. And when you live in an area that's predominantly what they do, then you lose. And it took a while for the city to rebound from that. And I know there are those that wish they could have done it sooner, and I'm sure that those in leadership positions wish they could have done it sooner and even better. But we could sit here all night long and curse the dark. What I think is important from my perspective is celebrating what is going on.
Very true.
You know, and when I look over here at the south town, that land there, and I see dirt and 3 major projects being turned, that's major. You know, newer housing addition coming, and multi-housing addition coming just a little east of us here. You know, and I remember when we first came here as a church and you were here around, we got this building, people were saying, what are you getting all that for? You don't need all that. And now everything is here, you know? And I think that whatever has happened, whatever was the reasons for it happened, I think sometimes we can get so caught up in vetting all of that, and some of it needs to be talked about, that we lose sight and appreciation for what's going on now. And I think that those in leadership, by and large, have recognized that they need to do better, and business people from across the city are stepping up to the plate and making sure that happens, and so we can get to celebrate that.
Absolutely.
Rather than spending all our time cursing the dark, you know. And so I wanted to chop it up with you in that context, is as much as you can share, because I know you're limited in what you can share.
Very.
You're limited in 2 phases. You know, you can't tell me about your military life because you have to kill me.
That's not true.
And there's very little you can tell me about what's going on with the chamber, because we both will be looking for a job.
Yeah.
But I, you know, Stevie, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I thoroughly respect you. I'm not saying this just because you're a nephew, man, but your leadership prowess is just off the chart.
I don't think it is. I just try to do what's right. That's it.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, and but I know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you.
Yeah.
And your ability to humbly, here it is, to be a servant leader, and at your age and in this setting, for such a time as this, is something that is needed in the city. We live in a very narcissistic society. People want to know what's in it for them.
Right.
You know, and there is a need for servant leadership, for people to understand that predominantly why we're here is to serve one another. I was at a conference, something the city did the other night, and I blew the data, but I'm gonna try to clean it up here. Looking at those passages in the Bible, it's like 100 different passages in the Bible that deals with the phrase, what we are together. And a third of those deal with us serving one another. The phrase are actually one another phrases, and a third of those deal with us serving one another. Another third of those deal with the whole idea of humbling ourselves for one another. And then 15% of those deals with the idea of edifying, equipping one another. And then the latter 15% picks up the change and says, okay, you do this because of your relationship with the Lord. That's the preacher in me. But we live in a society now where we view things from that prism of all 100% is me.
Me first.
Me, myself, and I.
Yep.
I can't do anything for you until I've made it to myself. And so to see young people with a servant leadership disposition and attitude is refreshing.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm young, but
Well, you gotta realize your uncle just turned 64. So
yeah, happy birthday, by the way.
Well, thank you. So you are young.
Yeah, younger than you.
Younger. Yeah.
But definitely not young.
So, well, how old are you?
47.
Okay. Oh, okay. He's not young.
47 with 26 years of military service, so.
Yeah. Okay, so if you put that in there, that adds another 30 years.
There you go.
Okay, I got you.
There you go.
There's a rationale. Okay, I can roll with that. But given your generation, what do you think the challenge is for developing servant leadership?
I think the challenge is that you don't know where to start. I mean, if you don't have a baseline, a stage one, so to speak, of where it is you want to be by a certain age or a certain phase or season of your life, it's kind of hard to to say, well, I'm going to do college and then I'll start serving, or I'm going to do college and then get married and have kids, and then once I'm established, then I'll start serving. I think the greatest benefit to me during the military at 17 was it was great that I didn't have a clue or an idea or a concept of what I wanted to be when I grew up. The Army was going to tell me. So they just fostered my strengths and said, hey, you're good at X, Y, and Z, so we think you need to do the following things. And along those career paths or tracks, I picked up the knack of being able to talk to people from different backgrounds. Having a second language also helped when we did some exchange work overseas. And then I just always was one of those soldiers that always tried to do for everyone else in my team before I did for myself. And a gentleman by the name of Charlie Cox, Command Sergeant Major Cox, he recognized that was a leadership trait in me, and he put me in a leadership position at a very, very young age. I think I was 18 or 19 when I made E5,
Wow.
So I was a team leader, fresh out of high school, and didn't know any better. But just being able to take a team and grow that experience and that expertise from a team to a squad to a platoon to a company to a battalion mindset, and it's all the same mindset. Just take care of those that are taking care of you, and it'll all work itself out.
John Maxwell has this quote. He says people ask him, "Are leaders born?" And he says, "Yeah. You ever met anybody that's alive that wasn't born?" And then he goes into his spiel about
Good point.
the development of that individual into a leader. And he talks about the cap. He said there's a cap. He said if your cap is here, you will never lead anyone above you, or you will never lead anyone to a place where they grow anywhere near you, because the cap is you. And I thought about that when you were saying, at 18, this gentleman recognized what was in you and began to position you to pull that out of you. What do you think primed that pump? Was it family? Was it the fact that you had lived in other countries? Or what do you think primed the pump so that at 18 he saw that?
I think it's a mix of all of that. The family tradition, our background, my grandfather, both our grandfathers served, mom's side, dad's side. My father was a firefighter. My mother was in the armed services, in the Air Force. My sister, she was in the Coast Guard. So I guess it's in our DNA, I guess. We serve in whatever fashion, shape, or form that we can.
And your wife?
Yeah, and my wife even served. Well, that's the hilarious story. She was going to be a Marine. I was like, I'm not marrying a Marine, so. It just happened to be a recruiter at that phase. Was like, I got exactly what she needs. So.
I never knew that's what she wanted to be.
Oh yeah, she was 100%. Yeah, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. I'm not marrying you, a Marine. You can be a Marine, but we're
not going to be married.
Make a choice.
You all been married how many years now?
22.
22 years.
22 years, 3 boys.
3 boys. Wow. Wow. So you say it's all the above. It's family. It's the tradition of a family that served. Mom served in Navy and.
Mom was Air Force, Air Force Reserve, and Army. Erica was Coast Guard.
Yeah.
And I'm Army.
Yeah. And your dad's retired from the firefighters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I
What, 35 years or something?
It's a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember when.
Yeah. So you had all that background of discipline. Your dad was a disciplinarian.
Still is.
Still is.
Still is. A lot of sirs still going on. F-47, yes sir, no sir.
Yeah, now that is the great Santini.
That is, 100%.
So and so all of that experience, that family background, et cetera, shaped you. So that at 18, this complete stranger who specialized in observing those qualities was able to see it and take it to the next level.
Yeah. Walking down the hall at Elmhurst, and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I am the completion of that conversation right now. So
wow.
He's actually 92 is when we met, and I spoke to him just a couple of days ago. We're having our 20-year reunion for the first deployment to Iraq at the end of the month. So, I mean,
he's still active?
No, he's not active. I mean, but he's still
yes, active.
Yeah. So, I owe that guy everything.
Wow. I the gentleman that poured into me and mentored me, he died some years ago, and I tell everybody the same thing. I say, hey, if you're gonna thank anybody, thank Buck. Now here was a guy. This is what I'm saying. Here's a Marine that's out of Marines and serving as a chaplain for a jail. Comes to the jail and witnessed to me the love of Christ. and helped me because I said yes to that, saw something in me, and put his name on the list. Matter of fact, facilitated, went to 20 of his friends and their wives and said, I need you to sign this petition. I want this young man out of here, and we're going to disciple him. And they all signed their name. Mm-hmm. And this is Mississippi. And none of them look like me.
Mm-hmm. Cox doesn't look like me either.
He put his name out there, and he spent 3 years after the judge said, yeah, you could disciple him, and pouring into me, and I am who I am because he did that.
Yeah.
You know,
100% relatable.
Yeah.
So there's a welcome home photo after the first deployment, and I'm sitting right next to back then he was First Sergeant Cox, and to this day I still get a bunch of questions like, hey, where are we at in this picture?
It was just you and him.
Well, there was another guy, Brownlee, but there was just two of us in the whole unit.
You do understand the assignment, don't you?
Yeah. So, yeah, I completely relate. And, you know, all those guys, I mean, we're still as tight as day one.
Wow. So that sets you up, and you've grown and developed personal development then. Mm-hmm. So if there were 100 young men sitting in this audience here tonight, live, we know there will be thousands that will watch it. What would be your advice to them at this junction? What would you say to them? Number one.
Don't drift.
Wow.
Don't drift.
Now expound on that.
So Napoleon Hill, in one of his books that I've reread 100 times, it's Outwitting the Devil, and he has a conversation with Satan, and he asks, you know, what is the one thing that causes the proliferation of sin? And the devil responds, drifting. By not having purpose, a definitive purpose, you cause yourself to find all of these opportunities to do things that are not productive. So by drifting, you allow things to happen, but by having purpose, you're not entangled up with or deceived by or confused by opportunities or perceived opportunities. You're focused on what your specific goal is, and you don't have to worry about all of the tangents that come up in life.
Actually, there is in Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, there are 5 warnings in that book about how to stay focused and do what God has called you to do. And the first one is drifting. The very first one is drifting. And he talks about, you know, staying focused, and the only way you can stay focused is realizing why you're here, what God's plan is for you, and staying riveted to that. And he reminds them of what they used to do when they first received him, how they allowed their stuff to be taken, their houses to be taken, their money to be taken, all for the name of Christ. And he says, you need to remember those former days, because right now you're on the verge of drifting.
I agree 100%.
I know this now after 64 years. I didn't know it obviously at one period of time because I was in jail, but I know it now. I think one of the most important things, male or female, black, white, Jew, or Gentile, for any individual to have, and the sooner the better, is a sense of purpose, a clear sense of purpose. And be glued to it, riveted to it. Because if you don't, there is a myriad of things out there
that will distract you.
That will take it away and distract you.
Absolutely. And to me, the whole principle of purpose was try not to make it so laser focused or so complicated that it kind of makes it almost impossible to see your purpose. I was told that if you made your purpose as general as possible, you could kind of apply it to any and everything. And just coming up through the ranks, I had tons of leaders, and we would have conversations like this. And, hey, how can I be a better team leader? How can I be a better squad leader? My chief focus when I went into the military was to be a platoon sergeant of an infantry company, because that was the cool job in my mind. So in order for me to be that, I knew what the benchmarks I had to hit and when I needed to hit them. Some of them I hit way too early, and they would not allow me to do certain things because I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the background, I didn't have the, how do you say it, the
social capital.
Pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I had not invested into
Yeah.
the unit enough to get those positions. But with time, we just kept refining what my purpose was, how I could get to that goal. And a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, man, you just write it down and make it." Keep it simple, stupid. Make it so easy that it's just applicable to everything in life. So we came up with help as many as you can for as long as you can, as best as you can. That's it.
And that was the personal mission statement?
That's my personal mission statement. That's it. And everything that I've reaped to this point is based upon that mission statement.
Out of all these years that I've done this and sat in this chair, if you would, in one capacity or the other, you are the first person that has articulated a personal mission statement. And that means so much, because I try to tell people, the tendency is, even with church, we join a church and we get enveloped into the mission of the church. But there's a place, there is a need, a necessity for a personal mission statement. And I remember I had a private contract with East Allen County School, or Fort Wayne Community School at the time, and they were paying me good money. This was probably 25, 26 years ago, if not longer. And I was working at Park Center as a mental health therapist and doing that as my private practice. And 25 years ago, I was at $50 an hour. I was ready to quit. 25 years ago, $50 an hour.
That's big money.
That's big money. Well, I was ready to let that go, because I just couldn't deal with the kids, And I ran across this book by Lori Beth Jones called The Path. And in this book, she tells the story of her great-grandfather who tells her the story about if a soldier appeared in the dark and he could not recite his mission statement. He was a casualty.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because they said, I can't trust you.
No.
And I don't know you if you don't know your mission statement. Because
right.
everybody in this camp knows what the mission statement is.
Yeah.
And she unfolded that in that small paperback book, I know, where she eventually wrote a book called Jesus in Blue Jeans. And she said that there was a need. And I developed my own personal mission statement in the darkest period of my life when it came to my professional life. And this is where my mission statement was born out of. I exist to recognize, inspire, and promote the personal, promote unity to God's people, both individually and collectively. And everything I do since that time, and everything I say no to, has been filtered through that.
Absolutely.
I exist for that reason. And I try to tell people, especially young people, and I went back in the school system and start teaching them, developing a personal mission statement. And became less about correcting a behavior of this kid, rather than broaden his or her perspective of the future by getting them to lock into the reason why they were here as early as possible. And uh, I believe strong. It's the only way that you can avoid drifting. Egypt calls. I don't care how many miracles God did to get you out of Egypt. Egypt still has a voice. Ask the children of Israel. It will call you back. It will you lose sight. Ask David about drifting. As the Bible says, it was the season that kings go to war, and he, as a warrior, was drifting because he was hanging out on the roof, chilling.
Exactly.
And there was
saw
Bathsheba.
Sheba.
And some theologians would say she knew what she was doing because she knew he walked that roof.
Waiting for the opportunity.
And the Bible says that God says, I forgive you, but the sword would never leave your home. And Doc, they still fight. They're still fighting. So drifting. Okay, that's a good one. We could preach on that one all night long, Doc. You got me rolling here. You got me rolling. What would you say the second would be?
Don't drift. Find your definitive purpose. And
that is second then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right. Define definitive purpose. Okay.
Find your definitive purpose. Yeah. The third one is more of a mantra rather than an obtainable goal. Just exceed expectation.
I've heard that.
Just
is that a military mantra? Because I've heard that before.
It is. If you don't do things just for the sake of getting things done. You want to do things properly. You want to do things to bring honor or credit to yourself, the unit, or the Army. But that's like one of the sentences they use at the end of almost every military certificate or award. Brings credit to himself, the unit, and the Army. So everything that you do, just try to exceed expectation and do it with a sense of excellence, I guess.
How would you define excellence?
You know it when you see it.
It's that old, and you back in the Supreme Court, huh? Okay.
It's a moving target. I mean, excellence is just excellence. I mean,
yeah, the reason I answer because I've had this conversation before, and I asked an individual to define excellence, and they say basically the same thing. Or they respond the same way. I know it when I see it. I'm of this bent that once I recognize who I serve, i.e. God, and all that He expects of me, then the goal should be to serve Him so that outcome happens. How that looks in different scenarios based upon my strengths and weaknesses may be different at any given moment. But excellence, therefore, is what my commitment to strive for that goal, for that height. So I believe that I exist to recognize, inspire, and promote the purposes of God in individual and collective life. That's where excellence comes in for me,
But then you could also say that excellence is just effort.
Some people would say that.
Yeah.
It's waking up in the morning.
Yeah.
What's the one gentleman, the Navy SEAL, I think, says, make your bed.
Yep. If you want to be excellent, the first thing you do in the morning is make your bed.
First thing you do in the morning is make your bed.
Yep. Yeah. Still do. The twins too.
Yeah. I told you were Grace Santini Jr.
Yep.
So speaking of you got 3 boys.
I do.
So any of them headed to the military?
Me and my wife talked about it, and we won't deter them from it, but we think that we've done enough to prepare them to be successful in life to not have to.
To not have to.
Right. So
That's
we're
a
not
big difference.
we're not going to push them into it.
Yeah.
But if they choose to, we will set them up for excellence and greatness with our combined background, knowledge, skill sets, and whatnot. But we don't want them to feel like it's necessary. Now, when I enlisted because I didn't have any lofty goals, but I knew I wanted to go to college, and being in a single family or a single parent household, it wasn't something that my dad could afford. So to alleviate that stress, it was an option. If you want to go to college, here's a way to pay for it. And I went, got 3 degrees, and now my kids don't have to, because everything that I've done has afforded them the opportunity to go to school for free.
Wait a minute. So, in the process of serving the country and everything else that you talked about earlier, you've earned 3 degrees?
Yes, I did mention that. Oh, yeah, I've got an associate's in business, a bachelor's in international business, and an MBA in international business.
International business.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm actually on hiatus on my doctorate because I took this job at the chamber. So
not long from now, you'll be defending your
my thesis. Yeah, maybe if I go back. I got 2 years to make up my mind, or I have to start over.
Yeah, go back. Go and get that doc.
Eh.
Go and get that. I'm gonna call your daddy. Get out of there, soldier.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree that you and Vicky have definitely provided the structure for them to succeed, because you provided a structure that is full of love, but also full of discipline, also full of responsibility, sense of responsibility, et cetera. And so if they choose to, it'll be because they choose to and not because they have to. That's a big difference. And Dalen, he and I talk theology all the time.
That boy.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked theology. He called me the other day. I think you all were in Texas, and we talked for about 2 hours about theology. He's hungry. I appreciate him so much, man. I appreciate him so much.
Yeah.
So, in hindsight, if you were giving advice, if you had 100 guys here in this room and they were all looking to be a part of the platoon that you led, you would tell them, number one, you need purpose.
Definitely. 100%. Find your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, ask somebody what your purpose should be.
Wow. It's just that necessary.
It's 100% necessary. 100% necessary. The craziest things in life that you get these moments of clarity, like during combat. Doing nothing will get you killed.
Now that's clarity in combat.
Yeah. So always be doing something. Improve your fighting position. Work on your sector. Just be doing something. Not for the sake of doing something.
I understand.
Just stay focused.
Stay focused.
Yeah, because as soon as you drift, zone out, that's when you get hit.
Yeah, that principle works in life as well. If it don't take you out literally, death, you die. You're the inside out. Okay, so purpose, drifting, and always exceed expectations.
Always. Even the little things.
Now, when I unpack that, I think it's impossible to exceed expectation if you don't know what purpose is.
Very true.
And it's impossible not to drift if you don't know what purpose is. And one of the most dangerous things I think can happen is when you try. I think I did this. I think one of the most dangerous things, if it doesn't take you out, it definitely leads to long delays. You find yourself on an exit because you don't have a sense of purpose, and you're drifting and just traveling down a road, and then you see somebody doing something, and it's positive, and you try to mimic that. That's just as dangerous. Because it's not your purpose.
And you may not be prepared to do whatever they're doing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly it. We have been going through this process here, and I know you know this, where we say, one of the things you have to do, you have to have purpose. When God calls or when he lays his hand, you got to have purpose. Now, number two, you got to operate in that purpose with a sense of passion. Thirdly, you gain appreciation for the people and the place that he's assigned you to. Out of that context, and only out of that context, can you be fit, we call it, fearless, intentional, and transformational, which is the title of this program. You cannot be fearless, intentional, and transformational if you don't appreciate the people and the place that God has assigned you to. Mm-hmm. And parenthetically, if you don't appreciate the people that God has assigned to you, i.e. the gentleman that saw something in you mm-hmm. and began to pull that out of you at 18. And then naturally, if you don't have a sense of purpose. I appreciate your time here, Doc.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else you'd like to share with us, Doc?
If there's questions that you have about what the Regional Chamber does, you can visit our website at neinadvocates.com.
Okay.
Then all of my personal background information is on my personal website for my personal brand is at stephentownsoneword.com as well.
Amen. Well, you heard it here. And I want to thank this young man not only for what he does here, but his service to this country. I think that if you've been in America at any time, the one group of people, men and women, that have given up so much, and in many instances come back to us giving them so little, to help adjust to life, it is the men and women of the various branches of our military. The data concerning military men and women that are committing suicide on a daily basis is staggering.
22 a day.
22 per day. And these are people who gave up everything and stood on that wall in one capacity or another while we sat here and drank Starbucks coffee and filtered water. And and we find ourselves not serving them on the same level that they've served us. So I want to say thank you for your service, and not only your service on foreign territory and within the military, but coming back to this local community and serving it again in the capacity that you're doing now. We appreciate you and Vicki and your family as a whole, and just thank God for everything that you are accomplishing and have accomplished in your life. Come back and see us sometime.
Glad to do it. I'm
Anthony Payton, pastor of Come As You Are Community Church, and you have been listening to Fit Conversation. And whatever you do today, put yourself in a position where you know what your purpose is, and you operate in that purpose with passion. You appreciate the people in the place that God has assigned you to, and the people that he has assigned to you. And I guarantee you, you will end up fit, fearless, intentional, and transformational. Thank you for being with us today.